Action.
Okay, most of the instructors instruct you to flap something like this, where you'll come back over the top of the board with the flap material and then just tape it to the back, like that. The only problem with that, I mean, it looks great on the front and it does its job, it helps protect. What are the two kinds of things that the flap is really intended to do? It's not just making it pretty. It's basically to cover the material and protect it, or protect the actual project, but also it's to give that aha moment when you reveal the project to the client. So when you pull it up, you can keep it hidden, and at the appropriate time when you want to make that reveal, sort of like when new cars are introduced, they make a big grand deal, you know, out of the whole thing. And when you get to see the new improved model or whatever, then you get to see the solution. Okay, the problem with this type of flap, in my opinion, is when you do that, when you make the reveal, what happens to it? It comes down and comes off the bottom, which makes it very difficult to set up on an easel or to put up on the board or whatever. That's always getting in the way, and people are always fumbling with it. Everything for your presentation should be thought through and should be very, very simple and direct without giving you any more problems. You've got enough problems just being nervous and standing up and talking. You don't need other outside things coming into the issue. So this method that I'm going to demonstrate sort of resolves that a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to take this piece, which if you recognize it from the blog, it's where I demonstrated how to use rubber cement to actually adhere a piece down. So we're going to find a piece of cover paper that will cover that. This one will work. And the first thing that I'm going to do is just put the cover paper down flat, line up the paper, and you should have, it doesn't have to be this oversized, but it should be slightly oversized, obviously. And then I'm going to fold the back side down and crease that nicely. Okay, now I'm ready to actually stick this down. And the other method, the original method, we just put a piece of tape here. And the longer this flap is, the longer that would stick out down at the bottom, so the bigger the problem. So in this case it would be really pretty bad because this has got a big overhang on the flap. This is an ATG gun. We have several of them in the office. You could do this same thing with rubber cement if you wanted to, but ATG makes it quicker and faster, and you can check them out or just use them and then get in and put them back in the office. Basically it is, ATG stands for Adhesive Transfer Gun, and it has double stick tape basically without the tape. It's just the adhesive on a release paper. You pull the trigger and you pull it toward you with slight pressure down, and it applies this tape material. So in this case I'm going to put a row of this ATG tape on the top of the board and on the top of the actual flap material all the way across. Okay, and then I'm going to line my page back up again so it's nice and square, and then stick that down on the bottom side where I've applied the ATG, and now I've got a flap that is completely secure on the back, and I can back fold it up here on my original crease, and after I trim it out, it won't flap, it won't go down below when I fold it back over. Okay, a little simple trick, and I think it works so much better than just taping it on. Now obviously we need to trim it out. Use a straight edge and guide that with our board. Cut the other side off the same way. And now we've got our finished flap cover that folds back smoothly and stays secure on the back side. Okay? Most of the time your instructors will want you to put a tracing paper overlay as well as a flap, so that, and for me in my classes, what I require that, but I don't really care whether you wrap it like that on the back. So what I usually do, this is for my benefit basically, so I can grade on it and mark on it without having to mark on your actual sheet. Probably in the industry, you might or might not do this at all. When you finished your project showing it to a client, you probably wouldn't have a tracing paper overlay because it just, again, adds too many things. But I simply tape it to the top. Okay, and again, some instructors are not going to like you to do this probably. They want it covered or going to the back side. But for me, it's just there for my benefit, not necessarily for the work. So I'm going to use white artist tape, and I'm going to cut or tear a piece off longer than the actual piece, and then just tape it, simply tape it nice and straight. The one thing you do want to do though is make sure that it's nice and straight and smoothly applied. And then again, like everything else, you want to trim off the edges. So I'm going to trim it flush, including the tape. And there we have our tracing paper overlay over the top. Okay, questions? There's one other thing, and this one is kind of decorative. It does have a practical function, but stop the recording, Kevin, because I don't. Movable die insert that goes right in here, and actually you can get different radius or radii. I don't know how you, what's the plural of that? Anyway, different size corners. It's got a 1/2 inch die in it right now, and it's a real simple process, and the functional process of this is to round the corner so that if you drop it, it doesn't corner ding. And that's originally why everyone did this, but it has become more decorative than functional probably, and it just simply does that. A really nice, smooth, perfect round corner. You just put it in, butt it up against both edges, and it will cut right through. Now, it works great on mat board like this and papers. Doesn't work so well on foam board. Foam board crushes. Doesn't cut through as well. All right, any questions?
On the corner rounder, is there a certain thicknesses it won't cut through? Like
no, well, the space is about a 1/2 inch. I don't think I would put anything thicker than that through it. It's really made for stacked paper, so like if you were doing a booklet that was a fairly thick booklet, and you could put the whole thing under there up to about a 1/2 inch and do it at one whack. It's a, print shops use it for that purpose.
Is it usually only done on the bottom 2 corners?
Yes, you wouldn't want to do it on the top, because then when you open the flap up, it creates a weird shape right there. So the bottom 2 corners are usually the only corners that you do, unless it doesn't have a flap and you want, like it's a card-like type presentation, and then all 4 corners would be acceptable.